All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am here with Colleen and Suma. Both of you, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks. We're excited to be here.
You're the second couple that I've ever had on the podcast. I had some friends of mine the first season, but this is my second time doing like a couples interview. So
Yeah,
we're excited.
Well, we're honored. We're super glad to be here.
Good. So I'll just jump right into things. So Colleen, you're from the UP, a very rural part of the UP known as Felch. When you think back on growing up in the UP, what are some key memories that stick out to you?
I loved growing up in Felch. It is such a quaint town where the community just really sticks together, and people are just very loving and very kind, and of course North Dickinson School is like the place there, the only school that's there. So
right.
My memories, a lot of them are from school, and just being able to be with a lot of the same friends growing up and being in sports with those friends, and just having family close by. That was always really awesome. So those are probably the biggest things that stand out, is just that the community is just so warm and
sure.
Yeah.
And I figured you'd mention like family because, well, a preface for everybody listening in on this, Colleen is my cousin, and my mom and her dad are brother and sister, and we have a very big family. So it seems like a lot of my memories too from growing up are always being around family in one way, shape, or form.
Family and football.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Suma, you're from Tanzania, which is 8,000 miles from the UP. Did you grow up in a big family like we had, like what we're talking about? Did you have a lot of relatives around?
Oh, yes, I did. My dad was part of the 14.
Wow.
So I have a lot of relatives and cousins. It's
okay.
And I am grateful for that too.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
There's similarities in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, like Scott, you mentioned, born and raised in Tanzania, in a little town called Moshi, in Kilimanjaro region of the country, which is on the northern part of the country.
Okay.
And Kilimanjaro is one of those regions where there is multiple tribes that comes from there. So each region in the country, there is a tribe that comes from that particular area in the country. And two tribes coming from Kilimanjaro is the Pare tribe and Chaga tribe. And I am lucky to be part of those two tribes.
Oh, okay.
My dad was from Pare tribe. My mom was Chaga. So I grew up understanding both sides, basically. Yeah.
Okay. So when you're talking about these tribes, I'm assuming then they kind of each have their own like kind of traditions and culture, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely. So there's over 100 tribes in the country.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and each of these tribes have different ethnics. Or ethnicity and different dialects and different ways of doing things.
Different food.
Yeah, different foods.
Yeah, that stand out for them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and their foods basically is dependent upon what they cultivate in that region, what they can cultivate in that region, and they have different ways of doing exactly that. And they have, like Colleen mentioned, a special food that symbolizes that particular tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm kind of almost like thinking of like the UP in a way, almost like you have like your Italians that live on like the north side of Iron Mountain, and then you've got like your Finlanders and your Swedes and that type of thing is really what I'm kind of thinking back to. I noticed you've got your soccer jersey on now, but
it's
football, yeah.
It is Spain. It's a Spain national jersey.
But I'm guessing soccer's pretty big there. You grew up playing soccer, I assume?
At school, at home, with friends, soccer is everywhere. It's one of those sports that every kid growing up have to play or just plays. And so it was really fun.
Yeah. Well, and I got to get used to saying football because I'm used to our football. So
It took me, I'm still trying to get used to calling.
So, Colleen, you ended up going to NMU to be a teacher, which one of the many people in our family that are teachers. What made you want to teach?
I think back and I love learning myself. I absolutely love learning. And I had the experience of going into a fifth grade classroom, which is actually what I teach now. And to spend a whole year helping in that classroom. And shockingly, it was actually a cousin of ours, and it was his classroom. And I just loved it. I loved how the kids just lit up, and I loved how he was able to impact them. And I just really, I grew fondness for that. And to be able to pass on my love for learning, I think is what really made me want to pursue this. To get kids excited about learning and you know, discovering new things and that. So I think that's probably what it is.
Yeah,
I would think.
That's great. I can definitely relate to that. I feel like it's kind of a lot of the same reasons why I, went into teaching. So Suma, I know that you studied, and if I slaughter this name, I apologize, but the Dar es Salaam Institute of Technology, is that right? Or did I slaughter it?
Institute of Technology.
Okay. So, so can you talk a little bit about what you were studying there?
Yes. So going back before I was awarded a scholarship to Dar es Salaam Institute of Technology, I was awarded a scholarship to go to Moshi Technical Secondary School,
Okay.
the boarding school in my region. And after my 4 years there, I got a government scholarship to go to DIT, which is in the city center of Dar es Salaam.
The big city.
Yeah, it's
I was going to say that's the capital, right?
No, actually the capital is Dodoma.
Oh, okay.
Where the parliament is, but in Dar es Salaam, it's one of the most important city because most of the country's economy is being driven from there. In fact, the White House is in Dar es Salaam.
Even though it's the capital.
Yeah.
You know.
So, on the coast, so a lot of import items goes through there as well and gets transported around the country. And yeah, so I spent 4 years at DIT. I majored in electronics and telecommunication engineering, and I was involved in a lot of basketball at college and football as well. And I was also involved in the student organization there. I was part of the Ministry of News and Communication. So yeah, I had a lot of good times.
Did you always have like an interest in technology and that type of stuff? Or is that something that when you went to like Moshi that you kind of found, or?
That started a long time ago. My dad used to bring with me at work. My dad was an accountant, and he spent a lot of time with spreadsheet, and I would spend a lot of time in his office on a computer trying to figure things out, basically.
Okay.
At an age, and this is back when I was, say, not even a first grade, honestly. It's
wow.
Yeah, and so I think the curiosity started there on how these things work and how they seem very efficient in a way that some of them you don't even have to think about it, but things just happen. Well, how does this happen? So that curiosity sort of like drove me to wanting to understand the behind the scene functionality, and I think it brought more interest in technology.
And then can you touch a little bit on when you went to Moshi Secondary and how like it's like specific because you went to a technical school?
Yeah, so in Moshi Tech, like I mentioned, it's a boarding school, and it's a technical school. So basically you have to specifically focus on the area of your interest.
Sure.
And I was I chose to focus on electrical installation and electrical engineering. And it literally opened my eyes in different ways as how electricity work in each region altogether. So yeah, I learned a lot about Thomas Edison and all the inventors within that area. I switched gears going to college because I wasn't, electrical engineering is not very focused. It is a bit different from electronics in general.
Sure.
I was very interested in how machine work, how computer parts communicate with each other to make this particular conversation that we're having right here possible. So where electronics is, the devices that put together, and telecommunication is how those devices actually communicate with each other and through what medium and what protocols and stuff like that. So it's,
one thing led to another.
One thing led to another.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because you just obviously around the world, the educational systems are just kind of set up differently, so it's just interesting to hear how you kind of found your path, because I asked that question to just about everybody that comes on the podcast, because for everybody, it's always a little bit different how you kind of find that path in life. So I think that that's super interesting. I mentioned a few minutes ago that Felch and Tanzania are 8,000 miles apart, right? So the big question is okay, so how do two people who are 8,000 miles apart find each other? And Colleen, that kind of circles back to you being a teacher and an opportunity that you had to go to Tanzania in 2013. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I would love to. Oh my gosh, it was such an impactful moment in my life. So yeah, I got an email from my principal that just was like, hey, there's this opportunity to go to Africa. And this was sent to all teachers in Michigan. And I applied, and from what I understand, there was about 600 or so people who applied.
Wow.
And for whatever reason, I was one of 15 and they picked me. I must have just said the right thing, I guess. I don't know. So I actually went there. I went with 14 other Michigan teachers on scholarship to study experiential science. So learning science through experience. And we climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and we went on safari through Ngorongoro Crater and the Serengeti. We got to go to Oldupai Gorge, which is where Lewis and Mary Leakey found the remains of the first hominids, which is like, as a science teacher, that was just like, amazing. We went on Lake Victoria, which is the second largest lake by surface area after Lake Superior, which is kind of cool. And yeah, so we just studied all like different realms of science. We studied the biomes of Kilimanjaro. Yeah, so that's when I actually first met Suma, was on that trip. He, as well as other amazing people, worked for the company called Trek to Kili, which is the company that my group used. And it's actually owned by Suma's brother, Isa. So anyway, I met him that year, and with that trip, was, as well as the rest of the amazing team that was.
So how long were you there?
What was that?
How long were you there?
That first trip, I think, was about 3 weeks. We were there for about 3 weeks. Oh my gosh, and it was just absolutely incredible. It just was his country is just so amazing. Like just the animals and the scenery and the people and the food and just everything is just so amazing. It really is.
Was that your first time leaving the country, like going like abroad? Like, not, I don't count like Mexico or Canada. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say, no, we went to Mexico, Scott.
You did, yeah. No, I don't count that.
Yeah, but that was my first trip abroad anywhere. Yes. So it was a big one. I remember I made my mom and dad sit down when I told them that I was going to Africa, and of course they were super excited. But yeah, I mean, it's just such a huge trip for my first time, like going. Going.
So the climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, like, how long does that take? Is there like a preparation where you've got to like prep to do it, or like what goes into that?
Yeah, it's, first of all, though, the cool thing about Kilimanjaro is that it's really a walkable mountain. Like anyone who prepares for it can do it. Anyone of, different ages and just, it's a very walkable mountain. You don't need what's the word what's the word I'm looking for? Mountaineering. You don't need any mountaineering like experience or anything. But you do have to train like for cardio, being that it is, I think it's the fourth highest mountain in the world, tallest freestanding mountain in the world, over 19,000 feet. It's hard to breathe when you're up there. So
the rule is to go pole pole.
Yeah, pole pole. Go very slowly. That means slowly in Swahili.
Okay.
So what we did to train for it, I had like meetings with my group just to like learn about the culture and everything, and to prepare us for what Kilimanjaro would bring. But a lot of cardio. I did a ton of cardio. I did a lot of hikes. I went to the Porkies and I hiked there with friends. Always making sure to have on whatever boots I was going to wear and whatever day pack I was going to carry.
Okay.
Like your body used to that, and like put your 20 pounds that you're going to carry on your back so that you're prepared for that and it's not uncomfortable the time that you're climbing. So there's different routes that you can go on Kilimanjaro, and you can go a different amount of days, but the average I would probably say is what we did, and that's 5 days to get up the mountain and 2 days to get down the mountain.
Okay.
So you walk, you hike, whatever you want to say, for like around 5 hours each day, and then you stop at the camp. And the team, which is just absolutely incredible, Scott, these porters that carry your things, they are carrying all of your bags, they are carrying the tents, they are carrying the food, the mess tent, the tables, the toilet.
Wow.
They are absolutely incredible. And I'm not joking when I say they would have full stuff, walk past us up to the next camp, turn around, go back, get a second load, and beat us to camp.
Wow.
It is unbelievable how incredible these people are. So you get to camp, and then they have everything set up for you, and they cook for you, and we had a guy who brought a guitar along, so we would just sit around and he'd play and we'd sing, and then you get up and do it the next day. And as the days go by, you're going through all the different biomes, which is actually what's cool about Kilimanjaro is every biome that's on the face of the earth is on Kilimanjaro.
Wow.
Yeah, super cool, right?
Yeah.
So we studied each of the biomes as we went up, and so you're seeing all different different plant life and animal life and everything. And then you get to the top and there's nothing. You go there, no animals want to live there. But I will tell you that it's the most beautiful sunrise I have ever seen is above the clouds on summit day of Kilimanjaro.
Wow.
Gosh, it was a sea of clouds but beneath us. And that day we got up at like 3 a.m. and you climbed the summit. And you really only spend about, I'd say 20 minutes at the top, just because it's so hard to breathe and you can risk altitude sickness. And then you go back down to the camp that you had slept at, which is the highest camp, which is at about 15,000 feet.
Okay.
And highest you can sleep. Cause you don't need oxygen, like an oxygen tank when you're there. So, yes. And then you can go down quicker. It only takes 2 days to get down, just because your body acclimates much better going down than it does going up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Suma, were you working for your brother's company, like helping them out? What was?
Yep, I was. And at the time I was doing marketing for my brother's company. Actually before I started working, my brother gave me a challenge to first conquer Mount Kili, so that I could start working and be have enough knowledge of what I'm marketing about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I hiked and I reached the top when I was 17.
On his 17th birthday.
On my 17th birthday. So
Wow.
I turned 17 on the day we went to the summit. So it was very special and super
Awesome.
awesome moment. So I literally had Christmas, New Year, and my birthday hiking Mount Kili.
Wow. That is definitely pretty special.
Yes.
So again, the name we'll give them a plug, their company. So it's track the number 2 Kili, right? .com.
Yes. And oh my gosh, they're just amazing. His company is really awesome. He's not a gigantic company, which is really great, because then he can really focus on the people that are his clients. But he has over 10 years of experience doing this. His brother, he started off as a porter and then was a guide and then now owns his own company.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So they're amazing. Yeah.
And it's also one of those companies that are part of the K-POP, which stands for Kilimanjaro Porters Assistance Program.
Yeah.
Basically, they have to adhere to giving enough wages to the porters and enough free meals while hiking. And unfortunately, other companies don't do that.
And it's just not safe conditions for the porters. They're not paid well. They're not fed well. And so if you're part of K-POP, you basically are saying like, we promise to do this. Like this is important for us. And we ensure that our porters are well taken care of.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So, so you're there for 3 weeks. You come back to the States, but you ended up going back.
I did. Yeah. I got back and right away I knew I wanted to go back. I loved my experience, but I was very, very much a tourist in a big group of what they call Mzungu, which is white tourists. And so I wanted to see it from like a more local perspective. Like I really wanted to see it. I wanted to see what going to market looks like and, just seeing what everyday life kind of looks like there. So I had asked Isa if I could go back and stay with his family. He's at the time it was his wife and 2 daughters. They have 3 daughters now. If I could just live with their family and just experience it from a more local perspective. So at the same time, I also connected with St. Timothy's School that's there. And my students here did a big fundraiser and we were able to provide some awesome supplies to these students, including soccer balls, which they didn't have. They were just using they would just tie a bunch of rags and plastic bags together for a soccer ball.
Wow.
So we were able to get them some of those. And I was able to go and have some time at St. Timothy's School. And since then, I've actually been back 6 times now. I've been to Tanzania.
Wow.
So yeah. And
you're technically really not a tourist anymore.
No, not much. I look like one when I'm there, but we lived, I lived there for a whole summer, right down in the city, right in the middle of the city, which was really awesome. It was such a great experience. I've stayed on the coast. I've stayed in Moshi. I've got to experience a lot now, since that first trip.
You guys have mentioned a couple of times a few words or things in Swahili. That's like the official language, right?
Yes. That's the
national
language.
Ndio.
So you've picked up enough then, Colleen. Like, would you say you're fluent or just some words, or?
Okay, so that's actually like, can you grab my cards? That's like my big thing right now is I'm really working on, there's more, becoming fluent. Like these are my cards. I'm really, really working on it. I told you I love learning. So I know a lot of phrases. I know a lot of things that I can communicate with our boys. And work to help them become fluent in Swahili also. So I'm getting there. I'm not there yet. Not as far as I want to be. But I'm learning. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just assuming, because I don't know the exact timeline, but I'm just assuming in the midst of these trips, that's where the romance bloomed, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. After being there a few times, I was like, yeah, I love you. And then we ended up starting the visa process for Suma to come here.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because I obviously I know that you guys got married here in 2015, but I just kind of wanted to talk to you guys about kind of that process of making that decision. Okay, like we're doing this.
Yeah. I can start if you want.
Yeah.
Okay. So we decided to go with. There's different visas you can come here on. But the ones for marriage, you can either choose to be married abroad and then someone can come here on a spouse visa, or you can choose to be married here and they come on a fiance visa. And so that's the one that we decided to go with, was a fiance visa to be married here in the United States.
Also known as K1 visa.
Yeah, a K1 visa. So yeah, we started that process, which is honestly, it's a very time-consuming, very lengthy, very rigorous process that takes a lot of patience, and just making sure you have all your ducks in a row, and so we did that. We went through that process, and that took about altogether like 7 months, I think, before he was approved of his visa and then was able to come here. But then you go through all the steps here then too, though, because then once he's here, we had 90 days to get married. So that show 90 Day Fiance, that's like legit, like that's what so we got married, and then he was able to transfer into his permanent resident card.
Okay. Now, Suma, when basically around 2015, when this was going on, was that your first trip to the United States, or had you been here prior?
No, that was my very first trip.
Okay. So first time to the US, first time to the UP. What were your first impressions? What's going through your head?
Well, I got hit with the culture shock. I mean, everything was different altogether. Culturally, lifestyle-wise, it's all different. And I literally just said to myself, okay, I'm going to be open here and just let it all be and absorb and observe and learn, and fully understand the culture so that I can be able to be part of it. And at the same time, understand the cultural differences and be able to answer questions when asked about cultural differences. And there's everything is really different. if I had to guess.
Most, I would say most, maybe not everything. I mean,
most of cultural differences are completely different.
I remember you hadn't been here long, and I remember you had posted something on Facebook. I think it was probably your first winter, about seeing people going ice fishing, like going out on Teal Lake. I don't know why, but that sticks out to me.
Story, if I can share that story. We were driving by Teal Lake, and he looked out, and there was a truck on the water, on the ice, on the lake, and he was like, what are they doing? And I'm like, what do you mean, what are they doing? He's like, them, what are they doing? I'm like, they're going ice fishing. And he's like, they're on the ice with a truck. I was like, yes, they are. And he was like, I gotta take a video of this. I gotta send this to my friends.
I would have never guessed that was nearly a thing.
It was quite funny. So there he was videoing it because his friends back home really needed to see that there was a truck that was on.
I know there's snow up on Kilimanjaro when you get high enough, but like from where you grew up, what was the climate like? I mean, is there snow there at all? Or I mean, is it more like just a warm climate, or?
No, we are very close to the equator. Tanzania is, I would say
it's 3 degrees south.
It's like 3 degrees south from the equator.
Okay. And
it's always very warm and hot, and the climate is like just summer here.
Okay.
And if it's like winter time, it's mostly rain. It will go down up to say 50 Fahrenheit. But if it go lower than that, that's unlikely.
And that's usually like in the higher elevations that it will get that
especially
that cold.
Say Mount Kili, it's a bit colder, but other than that, the average is always very, very hot.
So one of the sayings about the UP is that you've got to really like the winter to live here. You've got to figure out ways to like enjoy it. Have you figured out some ways or some things that you can do in the wintertime that you like doing?
Yes, a lot. In fact, I discovered real quickly that in order to enjoy the winter is, like you said, do something and enjoy, actually just accept it to begin with, and then go and do stuff. So the very first year that I got here, I tried skiing, downhill skiing. I loved it. It was very fun. Actually makes me look forward to winter.
He like really likes downhill skiing.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. And
you did snow biking too.
I did snow biking too.
Like fat tire bike. You did a
bike.
bike.
Very cool.
That was very fun. I would do that again too. So
This
yeah.
year you did ice skating too this year.
Oh yeah,
Because we got the boys out ice skating.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Very cool. So what would you say you enjoy most about the UP?
The beauty of it, I really enjoy the dynamic of having 4 seasons. That's something that growing up I never had, and I really appreciate it. Having to adjust and do things differently based on those conditions. It provides a dynamic in life that I see it and I appreciate it. And obviously, the activities during these 4 seasons, given they're different, and the people who makes the UP beautiful, I do love that too as well.
That's great. It's interesting to get that perspective, because the vast majority of everybody that I've had on this podcast so far is born and raised here. So to really truly get like an outside perspective of somebody that's come here and fallen in love with it is interesting to hear. So Colleen, I know you're still teaching, obviously. You just mentioned you're a 5th grade teacher. You're teaching in Escanaba. Suma, you're working for NMU right now, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So what are you doing for Northern?
I'm a web developer for the Lydia Emulson Library at NMU. I'm responsible for building and maintaining a variety of web applications, including the library website that we successfully launched on last fall. And before I was hired at NMU, I was looking for opportunity and a career that I would not only grow as a person, but professionally and intellectually. And all while utilizing my talent to serve my community. And I've now been there for going on my 3rd year, and it has proven to be exactly that.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. And a great place to work. I mean, Northern is such a key part of Marquette. So, I mean, talk about being like plugged right into everything. That's where you want to be for sure. So to take a little bit more kind of serious turn here with our conversation, if it's okay with the two of you, I just feel like it's an important conversation to have with everything that's been going on in the world lately, the current state of affairs. I just think it's important to hear. So Suma, as a Black man living in a part of the country that, I mean, you look around, it's predominantly white people everywhere you look. How would you say your experience has been?
That's a very good question. You're putting me on the spot here. But I agree with you. These are very important questions that we should have, and genuinely listen and understand the other person's perspective. I find that's very important. But so from my experience, most people in the UP are kind and friendly in a way that people don't think twice about stopping to chat with a person like me, a person of color. And it does make me feel as I'm a part of the community, and that goes a long way. And also I feel those people in this area really do a good job speaking up for minority groups and against those who may not feel as eager to be as inclusive. And it's people like you using your platform to educate and continue to bring light, to initiate these types of conversations. And I really thank you for that.
Well, thank you. It's one of those things where it's very easy to, because, you and I, we see each other occasionally, and we just have, I would just say, surface level conversation like you do when you're just hanging out and having a barbecue or whatever. You're not really getting into deep talks, you know what I mean? So it's just nice to have a little bit of a deeper dive and get to know you and your perspective, like you said, because I think, myself included, a lot of us need to just kind of learn and understand better. And I think that's where a lot of stuff starts, is just learning and just sitting down with somebody and saying, hey, here's what I'm about. Are there any sort of like racial or societal issues like that in Tanzania? Is that something that goes on there as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And LGBT community, for instance, it is not accepted by the government. and that's unfortunate. So there definitely are such issues, and there's also initiatives to change that, which I also support.
But
great.
there's not really any like racial tension though in Tanzania. But that would be I would say a similar societal issue.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's interesting, especially with the big law that was just passed by the Supreme Court yesterday, and it being Pride Month and a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of parallels to what's going on here in the U.S. to over there. So that is really great. We also just passed Loving Day, which for those listening in that may not know, that celebrates Richard and Mildred Loving's case before the Supreme Court, that basically struck down laws that made interracial marriage illegal. So obviously you two are an interracial couple, and you've been married for nearly 5 years. What's that experience been like for you?
I don't know. I think it's been great for us. Most people honestly are super supportive, and often they don't really notice per se that we're an interracial couple. And if people do notice, they tend to give us a really friendly smile, and they'll watch as we walk past, which is it's great. And we have like kind of similar experiences when we're in the US and then when we're in Tanzania also, because interracial marriages in Tanzania are very much accepted. They're just not often seen. So we'll a lot of times get little kids that will watch us in Tanzania, like just looking at us like, wow, it's really cute. So I don't know. I think for us, we feel it's really been great.
Okay. That makes me feel good, because I mean, you just never know, like, until you walk a mile in somebody's shoes, you don't really know what they go through. So to hear that it's been a positive experience for you makes me feel good.
It really has been positive. There's been some things, but we don't tend to dwell on those or to focus on those, because most people are just really genuine and kind and very supportive of us, and that's what we choose to focus on that. So
sure. With everything that's been going on, I mean, what have the conversations been like between the two of you? I mean, has it been some awkward conversations?
Some deep ones.
So we are very open, and our conversation at home are exactly that, honest and real.
Yeah.
If you will. So we have some very deep conversation about our experiences, and given that we are coming from different culture, different background, and hence we are different racial, if you will, and figuring out how we can use our voice and experiences to support the good.
Good. I like hearing you say that, support the good. You guys know there's plenty of negativity to go around, so the more we can share the good, the better. Speaking of that, what type of stuff have you guys been like reading to or listening to or like watching? What have been some of the things that you've found?
Lately, we've both been very into like self-development and personal development books. That's really been something we've been reading together, and I took a turn and then now he's reading it. Yep. We've also, since everything that has been going on in our country, we both have found we want to really learn about the history of the United States. I grew up here, but there's so much that that I didn't know, and that I'm really coming to learn about. And I think it's awesome for me as a U.S. citizen and as Suma's wife, to be really informed and really knowledgeable just about the country that I was raised in and that I live in. And so we've been doing a lot of learning about that, and we've been watching some documentaries also on those topics. And yeah, I mean, I'd say that's
Yeah.
where our focus has been lately. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Basically,
feel like we've been doing the same thing. We've been like trying to like soak up as much as we can. I had shared a couple on the podcast, but I just feel like both Patty and I were like each day we're like looking to try and find like, oh, did you see this? Did you see that? It almost becomes like almost like a game between the two of us, is like who can find more info to share.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of the same too. Yeah, just trying to grow personally and and just become, really, really knowledgeable and understanding about everything that's, going on and yeah. So.
Well, and I think it's great. I mean, in the middle of all this too, you're raising two twin boys. Like, can I just give you major props for that? Because I mean, it's let alone dealing with everything with day-to-day life, but also being a parent to two kids, it's pretty awesome as well. Is there anything else that like I've missed or like that you guys would add or that you want to discuss? Because I feel like I've kind of hit everything I wanted to chat with you guys about.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like, the one thing that I wanted to touch on about my experience in Tanzania, that Suma and I had talked about, we've talked about a few times, is just there's such a strong feeling of community, and that is replicated here in the UP. And that's something that's similar about our cultures, especially, here where I grew up. But in his culture, who you have is much more valued than what you have. And that's something that, speaking of our children, Freddie and George, something that we really try to instill in them is just, really loving who is in your community and who's in your circle. And, we've watched some things, and something that really caught our attention was that more is caught than is taught.
Mm-hmm.
And I really loved that. That came from Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man with Emmanuel Acho.
Yes.
Which I'm really loving. That's what he said. And that just really resonated with us. And we really feel like with Freddie and George, we want to emphasize on modeling what we teach and what is important to us, and provide them with as many diverse experiences as possible, because truly this is only two out of everything in this world. And we really want to give them the opportunity to just immerse themselves in many different cultures and many different perspectives and have lots of different diverse experiences, because truly that's what we feel makes people love and respect everyone who they encounter. So we've been really working on, focusing on that in our family also.
That's beautiful. I'm getting goosebumps.
Thanks.
Oh, it's really great. I can't thank you guys enough for sitting down and having this conversation with me. I guess I'll kind of wrap things up here with the same question that I ask everybody, and that's how do you like your pasty?
Yeah. All right, go ahead. You go first, hon.
I think the first time I had a pasty was the very first year I got here, and I think it was made by my mother-in-law, Missy.
I was gonna say, was it an Aunt Missy homemade pasty?
Her amazing pasties.
Very good. I mean, I love them. I love them a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't ketchup on it.
Huh? Ketchup? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he's a ketchup guy because I'm a ketchup girl. We don't have no gravy in this house. Yeah. So we're both kind of, and as I know you are too, Scott, we're very partial to my mom's pasties because man, they're good.
All right. Well, Colleen, Suma, thank you for taking the time to sit down and talk with me. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank
you
you.
for having us.
We're so honored. Thank you so much.